Hi, my name is Paul Douglas Evangay, founder of the Blue Earth Project, and you are listening to the Blue Earth Project podcast, where we inspire a higher quality of life by advocating for ecological resilience in southern Minnesota. We promote honest conversations and awareness of local issues through our social platform. We support businesses, individuals, and projects that are making creative efforts to practice consciously. We engage our community, implement our own programs, and conduct independent research in hopes of finding a solution to some of our most paramount problems.
Welcome to the Blue Earth Project podcast. I'm your host, Paul Douglas Evangay, and I'm joined by our producer, Dave Sandersfeld.
Yo.
And our special guest, Scott Haase, owner of Blue Dirt Farms near Blue Earth, Minnesota. He's a farmer, a natural builder, and father to 2 teenagers. Thanks for coming on, Scott. Could you tell our audience briefly what Blue Dirt Farms is and what kind of work you guys do?
First, I'm super thrilled to be here, so thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I do, I kind of have my foot in, one foot in each world. I work on Blue Dirt Farm, which is my small homestead-scaled project.
Okay.
And then I work with my brother on Haase Family Farms, which is, we're 6th generation now in that business. Growing corn and soybeans on about 1,400 acres around Blue Earth. I started becoming educated about soil health and how these principles can be applied on like a really big scale and do things like clean the river up, restore some of these ecological functions that have been absent for 200 years.
Yeah.
So once I realized what's really possible, what we can do, then that got me excited in embracing technology and just doing everything I could to make an impact. And ever since, I've been still doing my own thing on my little homestead, but really where I want to put most of my energy is bringing the soil back to life on the family farm and hopefully well beyond through influence and whatever I can do.
Best place to start is your own backyard.
Yeah.
Take care of what you're doing before you start going out and preaching too hard.
Exactly.
I try to hold myself to a higher standard, but by no means am I perfect.
Yeah, 85% of my county is corn and soybeans, and those are warm season crops. And, what's it say on a bag of corn? It's a 90 to 100 day, 105 day maybe. And a lot of that is when it's in like this little tiny seedling stage. So most of what the area in the field, there's not a lot happening then. And it's only in a vegetative growth state for part of that time as well. So much of the year we just don't have a lot happening in the soil. There's basically no diversity out there. And
yeah, so in southern Minnesota, we're predominantly corn and soy. And maybe what you're suggesting is that there's a better way to do it, or there's a lot of potential.
For sure,
in
a better way to do it.
What makes Blue Dirt Farms different than Red Dirt Farms, or the farm down the road, or the majority of farms in southern Minnesota, and why is that important to the future?
I want to kind of separate Blue Dirt Farm and Haase Family Farms, because I've definitely got to give my family credit for what we're doing. Coming along on the journey with me on the broad acre farm, on Blue Dirt Farm, which is where I haven't mentioned it yet, I don't think, about the Mongolitsa pork. I'm raising some pigs there, growing that business, and integrating all these permaculture principles into what I do. So I have a lot of diversity there. I'm not tilling the ground and growing annual crops. But then when we get onto the broad scale farm, that's definitely what we're doing. We're growing corn and soybeans. But to bring that to a better system, what we want to do is get more diversity into that system through the plants that we're growing.
What would be an example of that?
We can do that. A great example, one that's relatively easy to establish, is just interseeding a cover crop in with some of those cash crops.
Okay.
So we've done that in corn before. We go in when the corn is, basically knee high or even smaller, and we seed a diverse mix of cover crop seeds into there. We have to kind of pick what's going to thrive because it gets very shady. It can get dry throughout the summer. So
I had no idea that they were seeding during the during the growth.
Yeah.
I thought it came after in every aspect, but
You can do it after too, but I think the greatest potential in corn, at least, is to do it while the corn is growing. And then
and what does this mean for the soil?
soil health, commonly agreed upon definition, is the soil's ability to hold and infiltrate water and its ability to cycle nutrients effectively.
Okay.
And those things can be measured. So
Yeah.
you can measure soil health. But yeah, farmers want to increase their soil health. They want to be able to use less fertilizer, maybe control their weeds, provide pollinator habitat, break up compaction, help with the infiltration of water, which is a huge reason I do it. That gets back to that whole soil health umbrella I mentioned before.
Yeah. And why are modern practices, the antonym to these suggested best management practices? Why is tilling the ground bad for soil health? Why is applying excess nutrients and, herbicides and pesticides not conducive to a long-range scheme? It seems to be being shown as, short-sighted, like it worked for a short amount of time, but now we're in a situation where we can't sustain it.
And I think it is evolving. I believe some of these soil health principles are going to become common practice. To what degree and how quickly, that's why I'm here. I hope it happens faster rather than slower, and a less watered down approach to it. But why we, what tillage does, what too much fertilizer, pesticides do, really to get at that, look at it from the point of the soil microbes. You have this diverse community. Scientists don't even know what's all living in there. I heard an estimate at a conference I was just at, and it was put on by a soil scientist, and she said that they've identified maybe 10% of the life that's living in there.
And why are the microbes important?
Wait. She said they know 0.1%. She says when she started her education, they knew 10%.
Oh, so it's gone backwards.
Yeah.
Funny. Sounds like the ocean,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
But these microbes, they generally like it just like we do. They like a relatively steady temperature that they can thrive in. They want water. They want air. They want to be shielded from forces such as wind, the impact of rain, too much sunshine, all that stuff. You can take a thermometer and stick it in bare soil in the summer, and it might be 100, 120, even 130 degrees or more. And you can walk 5 feet over if you have some cover over that ground and stick a thermometer in the soil, and it might be 75.
Oh, wow.
So you see these huge differences. And once it gets that hot, a lot of this life starts to shut down, or it can just plain die. And
that makes sense, because you're churning up the soil, so now they're on the surface as opposed to underneath.
Yeah,
where
and the
it's
tillage, that's kind of like a tornado coming through. It just rips everything apart. It breaks down these soil aggregates that are so important.
And the microbes help
so
with those
many
aggregates, don't they?
Oh, they create them, yeah. There's a substance produced by soil microbes called glomalin, which basically wraps around these little chunks of soil, and it provides a spot for a film of water to exist on them, where all these other forms of life can live. It creates pore space between them, so water and air can move through the soil profile.
Yeah, and then you can start talking about like compaction and erosion also being a byproduct of tillage and loss of aggregates.
Oh, for sure. So you're pulverizing the soil, which over time you do that a couple times, and if you're not actively doing a lot of stuff to undo that damage, you're going to destroy your soil aggregates. And then it's just so prone to wind and water erosion. A drop of water can hit that, and it just breaks the soil into little parts, and they just wash away.
Are there any digestible, quantifiable claims as to the state of our soil in terms of how much we've lost recently to
I don't know.
erosion?
You hear a lot of statistics thrown around, and I haven't really looked into the validity of them, but yeah, I don't doubt we've lost a lot. Certainly, the organic matter content has gone down. I'm guessing on virgin prairie soil it was probably 8 to 10%, and now a lot of farmers have 3 or less.
And that has a lot to do with like water retention.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the other thing?
Here's a statistic I do have.
Yeah.
For every 1% organic matter in the soil in the top 6 inches, that soil can hold another 20,000 gallons of water per acre.
Whoa.
And actually, that's a range. It can be higher than that, but 20 is kind of a low average number.
That sounds...
So
that's a lot.
We think about all the flooding we see in the river and all this water leaving fields, causing erosion, carrying sediment, fertilizer, and all kinds of nasties with it. Think about what holding more water on the landscape could do.
And introducing more carbon to the soils would help with that. And that's what cover crops would also help with.
Yeah. Yep. They're doing it by feeding the microbes. Plants produce root exudates, and it's basically like sugar that comes out of the roots. And different types of these exudates made by different plants will feed different communities of microbes.
I think I heard that at the Nobel conference. The plants are basically like putting out a food tray for these microbes, saying, "Hey, come on in and help me out."
Yep,
like,
they all work together.
That's so cool.
There's just some really cool stuff that happens in there. You could read entire books about this subject, but these mycelium made from mycorrhizal fungi will send these little tubes around, and in exchange for these exudates they're getting from the plants, they will go and mine out, let's say we need some potassium for this plant or some trace minerals. It will mine those out and move it through its fungal hyphae. I can't say that, but hyphae, whatever they're called, the little tube-like structures, and bring it to the plant. So it's otherwise what you would have is the soil would have to be wet. So either you need a lot of rain, or the root would have to weep out some water, sugar water or something to try to carry those nutrients to it. But the mycorrhizal fungi are doing it for the plant. And in return, they're getting what they need to survive. And sometimes they bring different forms of bacteria into the process. Like these fungi can basically culture different types of bacteria to help them with their functions. So it's this amazing web of life.
Fungus is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
I knew all I knew about mushrooms was they tasted good on pizza until about 5 or so years ago, and then I started seeing these little videos like fungi are connected to all the trees in the forest, and they have their own little language and their understanding of who's brother in the forest, and they take sides and they choose who lives and dies, and it's like,
they know if the tree makes a sound.
Yeah, it's like the fungus are like these weird subtle overlords that we don't really pay attention to because they don't seemingly affect us at first glance, but they're kind of like worms and ants when you kind of think about it. It's like, this is what makes the world go
The more
around.
you learn about it, the more fascinating it is. I was recently at an event where there was a workshop on mycoremediation and all these amazing things that fungi can do to break down any kind of chemical spills or filter water or even make really specific antibiotics, like cultured potential. I don't think they're doing this yet, but culturing an antibiotic for a certain person for a certain condition.
There's a fun guy for every party.
Oh yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. So what do you see as the biggest problem in southern Minnesota and modern practices, like if you could devote yourself or the influence you have with an alternative farm, like what is that, you know?
Since it's all connected, it's really hard to say. There's a water infiltration problem. There's lack of diversity on lots of different levels in the fields and, you know, even like economically now. So if farmers and, you know, just people in general in rural areas can try to make themselves, you know, just a little bit of space to function and breathe and get a little more creative, which is what we're doing with in our farming, and it's working. And you're starting to see this. You can create that space, and then, you know, we can get diversity on the land, diversity like in our economics, in our people, in our diets.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like there's some things working against that. You know, farmers kind of find themselves in this system that's been, you know, formed around them. And to a degree, they're almost forced to carry out the monotony of.
That's what I mean. It's
what big
such a
is.
constrained system, especially in the last year or two as the commodity prices have come down. It's hard to really do much different, but that's why I say just making that space is so important. That's always the first thing you need to do when you're in a tough situation, is just get yourself some breathing room.
Yeah.
And that might be, you know, sell some extra equipment that you're not using, or figure out a little side hustle business, or
I heard a lot of farmers
try something a little different.
A lot of farmers are working second jobs, and I heard that last year because of, you know, falling commodity prices, that, you know, over 50% of farmers didn't break even, and there's this huge misconception that, you know, city folk look out to these farms and they see these $1 million pieces of equipment and they go, wow, like, dang, this guy must be, or girl must be loaded, you know, like how do they own all this land? How do they have all this equipment? You know, they're the backbone of our economy. Of course they got money, but when you hear that, you know, a lot of their equipment is leased, you know, they got loans out.
There's all different types. I mean, some are doing pretty well still, and, you know, they're probably not doing as well as they were 5 or 10 years ago. But
yeah, and I think the point I'm trying to make is that not every farmer, whether they want to help or not, is in a position to. And a lot of these solutions that are being presented are hard to implement without making some sort of sacrifice, like buffer strips, for example. You got to give up land to make a buffer strip, you know? So, like, coming up with solutions that are kind of win-win for everybody seems like the way of the future, and it's just a matter of figuring out what those are. And
yeah. There's a lot of opportunity too, I think, in finding out what customers want. That's been an exciting thing for me with my pasture and woodland raised Mongolitsa pork.
Yeah, let's hear about this.
So I've been raising about 20 a year, finishing them out. Like I get the pigs in there about 50 pounds. I raise them completely outside. One of my things is during the growing season, I always want them to have access to some kind of natural forage. So I'm constantly moving them around. They get to eat acorns, feed them on organic feed that I get from a farm probably about 25 miles from where I live. But
I've heard pigs will eat anything but acorns. I mean, come on. It's got to taste like crap.
Right. Yeah. Have you heard of that thing in Spain? I think it's the Iberian Peninsula, maybe, where they fatten pigs off of acorns, and it's just like this world famous ham. That's incredible from what I've heard.
Okay. Did you
we could be doing that right here on our southern Minnesota oak savanna.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we couldn't. So I'm growing the pork business. I've decided to bring it from hobby status into real business, and I want to get up over the next year or so to where I'm finishing 80 to 100 pigs a year.
Have you been selling your product locally at different shops?
Yeah, just to individual customers right now.
Oh, okay.
That keeps it simple on my end because of like the food law, basically. So I'm selling the actual animal. I'm not selling the meat.
They got to process it.
Yeah, I'll bring the pig to the locker for my customers.
Okay, gotcha.
So once I move beyond that, and then I'm gonna have to get into some licensing and go to use different processors that are state inspected, and that whole new can of worms for me. But
Yeah,
that's where we're heading, because people are really seeking products like this. They want something that tastes amazing, that is probably better for them. And I'm working on validating that claim. I don't like to say anything that I don't have data to back up. So I do plan on getting like some lard from my pigs tested so I can see what's all in them.
Interesting. I've heard my cousin's a hog farmer, and they even say the ham doesn't taste like it used to, and maybe your ham tastes a little different. Could you say that?
Yeah, I think it does. The processor I use, they use more of a modern technique for the curing of it. They do a good job with it. Mm-hmm. What I'd really like to get into is some of this traditionally cured product where, for example, you might cure a ham with just a dry rub on it and then leave it hang for a year and a half, 2 years potentially.
Oh, wow.
Haven't done that yet.
That sounds fancy.
Yeah, very fancy.
$100 bottle of ham.
It's not for everyone, but it's a way to bring some revenue to places that could really use it, and I could use it. Help me buy more cover crop seed.
Yeah, there you go. Support your local leadership, Blue Earth. Speaking of Blue Earth, have you heard of the Rural Renaissance Project?
Oh, yeah.
Are you affiliated in any
Super
way?
Cool people. No, I try to get over and visit with them and hang out as much as I can. And yeah, I'm definitely a supporter of their project. And
yeah, where are they?
We've been talking a little bit about the pork thing and how we might work together on that.
Cool. Did you know Janie from back in the day? Because she's from right around
I did
there.
not. She was a few years younger than me, and like I said, I kind of kept to myself when I was younger and just did my own thing. And
yeah, swinging from the trees out on the farm.
Yeah,
funny. Has any innovative tech been utilized on your farm or brought to the table? I think we maybe briefly talked about drones. You had maybe had some surveyor come out and do a
teenage son
flyby.
has one.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he loves mapping and just goofing off with it. And yeah, I'm sure there's some very useful things we could do with it as well. I was just at a conference where one of the speakers said he thinks that drone technology will be what GPS technology was to variable rate application, which means putting fertilizer and seed where it needs to be at different levels.
Yep.
But he thinks drone technology will be analogous to that. Where am I going with
it'll
this?
just be the norm. I think it's kind of what you're saying.
It'll be for controlled traffic patterns, which gets back to the thing about compaction. If you're
yeah.
Yep. So farmers who use controlled traffic, they want to drive in the same place in the field all the time.
Yeah.
So that means that all these other places that aren't being driven on pretty much never gets driven on, and does a lot to help with the compaction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one. We just upgraded our GPS auto steer capabilities, and
you on the John Deere RTK now, or?
Oh yeah, we are, because we switched up our management to strip till now. So instead of tilling up the whole surface of the field, we're just going to till strips that are they're like 5-6 inches wide, and then the corn will get planted into that. And in order to make that work, it's really nice to be able to precisely place those strips, because we might not be coming back. We might make them in the fall and then come back in the spring. Sometimes they're hard to see.
Yeah.
Especially if you throw some cover crops in the mix. If you're seeding cover crops when you make your strip and have a good fall, then it's all going to be overgrown. And
do your eyes get crossed permanently when you're driving through the field and you can't tell where the lines are?
So the first time we tried strip till, I didn't have the fancy guidance I do now, and it was fatiguing. And the other weird thing was I had cover crop on that field, and if I let my mind wander, instinctively I'd want to pull over so that the tractor was driving on the black strip instead of the green strip, because that's what I've been used to my whole life.
Yeah.
So I would, if I wasn't careful and paying complete attention, I would get off the road really fast.
And you just be running over plants.
Yeah.
Just smushing them.
Well, running over, this is with the planter, so planting not into the tilled strip.
Gotcha.
I didn't mention the other thing on our farm to reduce tillage. We've probably 20 to 25 years ago now, my dad switched to no-till soybeans.
Okay.
So we have only been tilling our fields once every other year, as we alternate between the two crops.
Yeah.
But now that we're going to do this strip till, it'll be like the whole next level to reducing it. And
Cool.
I think going complete no-till would be the best, but it's hard to do in our area. Some people are dabbling around with it, and it's cool to see farmers try it, and somebody's going to make it work.
Yeah, huge roadblock seems to be. I mean, I know there's cooperations of sorts where people are using each other's equipment, but you can't do something if you don't have the right equipment.
Yeah.
And let's say last year you bought a brand new planter, and then this year some new technology comes out that allows you to be a better steward of the land, but you just bought one. You can't go out and just buy another one, So like it takes time. Like it's kind of like military technology where like it existed 15 years ago, but we're not going to see any of it for like 10 years. It's not going to become the norm for another 10 years.
I think that's starting to change. I can see, the pendulum starting to swing. I think it's going to be exciting to see how things play out. But you're absolutely right. If somebody has like this big line of equipment that's all tooled up for tillage and what they've been doing, it's really hard to change. We had to make a significant investment. We had to upgrade a tractor and buy this giant strip till machine.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is just massive. We went down to Iowa to buy it, like near South Dakota and Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
So it's a big investment, and making changes, especially in tough economic times, it can be hard.
Yeah. So stop pointing fingers at farmers, guys.
And if you need some strip tilling done, talk to Haase Family Farms.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe we can hook you up.
Yeah,
although
cool.
we tried that last fall, and because of the weather and the learning curve working against us, we didn't even get our own done that we wanted to. But
Oh, geez.
I don't think we were alone, so I don't feel too bad.
Interesting. I don't know if I've told you, Scott, but how I kind of got into all of this was through designing drone technology for
cool.
agricultural application.
You mentioned a little bit about drones, and
Yeah, so that's how I came to understand all this, because like when I went to school here in Mankato, I didn't learn anything about agriculture. I didn't learn anything about our local ecology. So when I learned about how bad the situation was, I was kind of at a loss. I was like, shoot, I don't understand agriculture. I don't understand our local ecology. So how could I ever apply myself? And it was kind of weird because I came across a Star Tribune article where they were deeming southern Minnesota lakes irreversibly unswimmable, and simultaneously working on a drone design for high altitude cinematography. And at that same time came across all the different applications for drones, and agriculture being one of them. And I was just fascinated by it. And that's how this all got started. I was like, I'm going to build a drone. I'm going to bring it back to Minnesota, and I'm going to offer a subsidized service to create prescription maps for variable rate applications of all the inputs in ag. And, through the roadblocks in that build, kind of expanded on it, and then, created this more generalized umbrella brand under which programs or ideas, innovative tech like drones could, play a part or function or thrive. And I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. There was this huge wave of, drone technology is going to be the next huge thing for agriculture. And then it was kind of like overextended. And then there was this like, wait, there's like still a lot to work out. Like we can make pretty pictures, but we can't turn it into actionable, implementable data quite yet. We're still figuring that out. And, that's where the technology comes in. It's like everything's always behind itself. So it excited me when you said something about somebody who was like, yeah, man, drones are still in the game, because I still think they are too.
He thinks it'll be the next big thing for controlled traffic in fields.
Oh, it's going to dictate everything. It can read pretty much everything.
I want to ask you a question then. What do you see as something on the horizon that might fit into what we're doing with drones or just any technology in general?
I mean, tech, we can't look at tech as our savior. We always kind of assume, like, as humans that, oh, you know, in our new advanced ways, we kind of get arrogant in the sense that we think, you know, the drones are going to fly through and make everything all right. It's just not simply the case. It will help alleviate some of that, but essentially the most important thing in my mind isn't necessarily the technology. That's just a tool. What has to happen first is like a revolution inside the individual's mind, and then that needs to be communicated within their, you know, their pocket of their regional community, and everybody needs to get together and just, you know, basically stand up and say, hey, like, we can't keep doing this. It seems kind of like a charade at this point. Like, we're all like, oh, we're just gonna keep going, and like nobody's saying or being honest about the fact that sometime down the road, you know, be it 5 or 50 years from now, we're gonna be sitting there going, what the heck did we do? Like, why didn't we, you know, take a more proactive approach? And like, that's where I think technology comes in, because it's like, you know, it's a new thing that can, you know, can handle a task that before, you know, required some other form of labor, and it can be automated, and the data streams and the high resolution of these, you know, ultraspectral sensors, and like, it's not your old satellite imagery from 1984 anymore. Like, this is some real deal data sets that these sensors can pull out. So I think facilitating access to precision ag equipment would go a long ways. I think if everybody had access to that, and somebody willing to come around and give them data sets where they could fully implement the capabilities of these precision ag pieces of equipment, that it could go a long ways to reduce not only the cost to the farmer for the chemicals, but the amount of chemicals that are being used by the farmer. And I think that all plays into soil health too. Like, it doesn't make sense to give it more than it can absorb. You know, we can be more accurate. And I think that's what we need to do, and we need to do it now.
Yeah. So the cool thing about, you know, we were talking about the fungi before and how they can get these nutrients for the plants. By getting the plant getting everything it needs, especially if it's one that maybe hasn't been like manipulated and, you know, bred to death to be like this wimpy corn plant that can't handle any competition, you know, like the prima donna of the plant world.
Got to put a blanket around it.
Yeah. If they're able to, you know, retain some of this, you know, these tougher genetics in it, and it's getting what it needs through these associations with the microbes, it can produce chemical compounds that protect it from pest damage, and it can compete better with weeds. So you, by bolstering the soil health, you're going to use less fertilizer, less pesticides, even if you're a conventional farmer.
Yeah.
And then the other cool thing is, so I mentioned less water is going to run off. It's going to carry less stuff because you're putting less on.
Yeah.
And then this is like bam, bam, bam. There's another thing. These microbes, again, we were talking about how amazing fungi was for bioremediation. It's going to break down pesticides and whatever is put on the soil that much quicker once the microbial communities are healthy in it.
Cool.
So
that's exciting.
We're reducing all this stuff that's coming off the fields.
Yeah, because right now what we've set up is basically a water slide with like zero friction, and we're basically just dumping buckets of.
Makes me so sad is I think
juice.
A lot of people just see rivers and waterways as a way to get rid of water, and that's heartbreaking. And we got to use. It gets back to that diversity too. If we can have beautiful, wild, diverse areas, you know, think what that can do for quality of life and just enjoyment, and, you know, opportunities for, you know, places like river outfitters, for example. You know, why can't we have that everywhere? Why can't we have campsites along the river? I want to go swimming in. Well, I do swim in it once in a while, but it's probably not the best idea.
Yeah. You come out hairless.
Why does it burn?
If we're getting there, I'm just gonna jump in the river. Yeah, I don't know. We're about to launch a full-fledged river adoption program this summer, and we see it as an awesome way to kind of drive attention back and like
just get people out there more on the banks and seeing what's going on and understanding these natural systems. I think, pick up some garbage. That's great. Most wildlife isn't going to care too much if there's a pop can laying somewhere, but we do. Make it more beautiful and just get people's hands in the ground and
using
get them
that
out there.
Using that also, like I'm glad you brought that up. Like, maybe litter isn't our biggest problem here, but we can use the picking up of litter as a segue to understanding the invisible problem.
It's like
or
a
the
vehicle.
Greater problems.
Mm-hmm.
We're utilizing it as a tool. Most people, if I said, "Hey, we're gonna go adopt a river, and we're gonna go scoop up nitrates," they'd be like, "Oh." But if I was like, "Oh, we're gonna go scoop up, cig butts and pop cans," they're like, "All right, that makes sense to me."
Maybe we can inoculate piles of wood chips with oyster mushrooms to catch some of this stuff.
I've heard about some of this spraying the wood chips with.
I don't know how to do that yet.
Microbes and bacterias and.
I have big ideas for my pig paddocks though with it.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Oh, put some berms around them. I manage in a way that I don't want to see any runoff from my farm. But if we get a big downpour and I've left the pigs in a paddock for maybe a day or two longer than I should have, there could be a little runoff there. But
is that what we call hogwash?
Yeah. But what if I had a pile of wood chips or some straw bales staked down around that to catch some of that, and they're inoculated with mushrooms that love pig poo.
That's cool.
Then I can throw it back in the pen.
And it's interesting too, like when you talk about the function of the wood chips is like, slowing it down. It sounds like that's what our entire problem is like we've sped things up, we've overextended ourselves, we've tried to overproduce, and it's too much. The land can't handle it. We're the first thing to operate so fast and advance so quickly that Mother Earth Gaia, whatever you want to call it, is kind of like, I don't know if I can handle this, guys.
We're just doing it faster than we can understand the feedback loops.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point, because before, things never happened so fast that we didn't have an opportunity to monitor them before it got too out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. And I'm sorry if I keep asking similar questions kind of twice, but if you wanted our audience to take away one thing from our conversation today, what would that be?
You can do it. No, I mean, just look at what you can actually, what are your passions? How can you contribute to this? Our waters are impaired. You can look at all the negatives, but what can we all do to work with each other and connect and use our individual talents and not just use them, grow them, become lifelong learners and apply what we have to some of these problems. Just, reach out to, people like you guys. If you want to know about soil health, myself, there's so many other farmers that are starting to understand this stuff too and applying it on big scales. And I mean, there's so much we can do. That's probably the hardest thing, is trying to narrow it down to what really matters to you and how you can, be your highest self and put your talents to the highest purpose.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody kind of has a baseline understanding and interconnectedness that we all kind of share, but at the same time, everybody kind of is particular in their own way as to how they would be interested in getting involved. And I think right now, generally, there's this apathy attached to action where most people don't feel any individual action they could make would actually make a substantial difference in the world around them. So it's important for people like us, Blue Earth Project, to come in and say, hey, these are your options. This is how you can get involved. You can start making a difference today. You could throw us $20 and we'll plant 2 trees in your name. Like, just simple stuff that can apply to anyone.
Friends of mine are starting a million hazelnut campaign. That just reminded me.
Million hazelnut?
Yeah. So for $7, you can reach out to these folks and they'll sponsor a hazelnut tree that will get put onto the landscape by a farmer.
Cool. Is that local? Is that around?
Some folks I know over by Faribault in Northfield.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, we'll let them do that over there in Faribault. We'll get our own thing going on here. Maybe we can talk someday. Elaborating on how people can get involved, do you do anything on your personal farm? Do you give tours? Do you show people what you're doing down there? Do you have any educational offerings?
Yeah, kind of all over the spectrum there too. On Blue Dirt Farm, I host usually a few events over the summer. There's a permaculture design course group that's planning on being down for this will be their 3rd year of having a work and learning day at my homestead.
Cool.
And then on the family farm side as well, we've hosted field days. We've had some pretty well-known speakers. This was organized through the Sustainable Farming Association, which I am now a newly minted board member of.
Oh, sweet.
So
Congratulations.
happy to be serving there. But
they do good work. I like what they do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That organization, they've just opened my eyes so much through their soil health programming to what I can really do as a farmer, and just opened a lot of doors. And
I was excited about the soil health chat. I'm bummed out.
Yeah. We might reschedule it, but
well, you better reschedule it. We need somewhere to go talk.
That's why we're talking here, I guess.
Need more ears. Yeah, right. Good point.
Can't remember where I was going with all that. Oh yeah. So we do events.
And if somebody wanted to come to one of these events, how would they hear about it? Do you have a website with a calendar? Are you guys on Facebook?
Not yet. Well, I'm on Facebook. That's kind of my sole outreach port at this point. I'm in the process of building a website for Blue Dirt Farm, and if I have so much fun doing that, I might make one for the family farm as well. But
cool.
Look up Blue Dirt on Facebook or Haase Family Farms, and I share a lot of stuff on there on my personal page too.
Nice.
I really use that social media as I don't put a lot of cutesy family stuff. I put some goofy stuff on there, but it's mostly about soil health and nature, and what's going on the homestead.
Nice.
Working with nature.
Yeah, best of luck to you on your website build. We just got done doing ours, and oh boy, was it a task.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, everybody says it's easy.
You're really motivating me.
Oh, you just get the Wix and you drag and drop and plop. 3 days later, you got this professional website. It's just simply not true for anybody out there listening. Is there anything you'd like to end on, Scott? Do you want to give any shout-outs?
I thought I was going to prepare some epic monologue thing, but I don't have it.
Oh, bummer. That's all right. That's all right.
Next time.
Well, cool. Thanks for coming in and for all the work you do. You truly have made the world a better place. And on behalf of the Blue Earth Project team, your host, Paul, producer Dave, thanks for listening in. And until next time, Eco exist.
Water is the foundation of life itself, and what we have here is a major water problem. Let's harness the pride that we have for our 10,000 lakes and reclaim what we are quickly losing. Everyone is downstream from somebody.